Welcome back to Voices of Impact, the show where we explore the stories, identity shifts, and courageous decisions behind leaders who are creating meaningful impact in the world. So today's conversation is about something every one of us experiences, but very few of us truly understand, which is fear. And most people spend their lives trying to avoid it, eliminate it, or overcome it. But it depends on what you decide on, right? So, but what if fear isn't a stop sign? What if it's actually evidence that you're standing at the edge of your next level? So, I can speak to this because it's exactly what I went through, and I'm sure Becky can understand. So, joining me today is Becky, an identity and self leadership speaker and creator of the FEAR Fear Theory, a powerful framework that helps people redefine their relationship with fear. Instead of seeing fear as proof that you're not ready, Becky teaches that it's often a signal that your identity is expanding beyond what's familiar. It's really getting out of your comfort zone. Her work is more about than confidence, right? It's about building the internal capacity to lead yourself through uncertainty, make aligned decisions, and become the person your next chapter requires. So, Becky, I'm so excited to have you here. Welcome to Voices of Impact.
Thank you for having me.
Amazing. So this is something that I love to talk about just because it's just that feeling where like it just really pushes you to go to the next level. And it's a scary, but it's a very beautiful feeling. So love to get into this. So I know that Becky, every framework is born from a personal experience, right?
Yeah.
So before you created the fear theory, what was your own relationship with fear in terms of even personal or professional? And was there a season where fear was quietly running your life without you even realizing it?
So this is so interesting because I consider myself quite a courageous person.
Mhm.
So initially I was like, quite courageous, quite brave. But then when you said, was there a period of time where fear was running the show? Absolutely. So between the middle of 2022 until November 2025, me and fear were very well acquainted.
Yeah.
So the middle of 2022, I was on a business mastermind and we had to do some visualization and some scripting like about our future. And during that exercise and that meditation, I visualized a future that looked nothing like the life that I was currently living. I genuinely believe that that was like gifted to me at that moment in time for a bit of a vision of like, this is what could be possible for you. Like it was completely, I believe in, well, obviously it was in my subconscious because I didn't like know about it consciously. But as soon as I sort of like thought that that could be a possibility, it really excited me. However, there was a lot of things that had to go into place and I'd got to move through in order to be ready to do that. And honestly, my initial thing was I just burst into tears, like speaking to my husband, because I was like, I genuinely feel like this is something that I would love to pursue and love to be able to do, but I'm ridiculously scared. And the first few months, I think it's like anything, excitement takes over, and I spoke with my team and I was really honest about a transitional period and what have you. And interestingly, I remember saying, I think it's probably going to be about 3 to 5 years though, 3 to 5 years. And that's like genuinely what felt realistic to me. But then like 6 months down the line, it like literally for 6 months, my life was like a video game. Everything just felt so easy. It was like the universe was giving me blessings left, right and center. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is fabulous. But then it's almost like, hang on a minute though, babe, right? If you want this, now you're going to put in the work and we're going to give you test after test, lesson after lesson,
Right.
challenge after challenge in order for you to build what you need to build in order to go and do that thing. And it took me it took me 3.5 years. Like I knew I had this pull in me to explore my work beyond the studio. Like even though, because I'd had my dance academy from being 19, it was actually when COVID came that I realised in COVID it wasn't the dance for me, it was the inner transformation. I just had used the dance as a vehicle until in COVID that were taken away and I didn't miss the dance, but oh my goodness, did I miss that interaction and like that impact and making that difference. I was like, oh, that's what I've actually been obsessed with. That's my thing. And I did my transformational coaching in COVID and I was like, oh, this is it, So to explore work beyond the studio, but I also believe that when we're moving into something, we've got to pick up the skills for ourselves beforehand before we're able to do this thing. And literally for 3.5 years, I just I say now to people, I'm like, excuse the pun, but I'm going to say it. I literally just danced with fear because it were like, oh, this is what my future could be like. Oh my God, but I'm so scared. This is what my future's like. Oh, I'm
Yeah.
just going to stay over here. And like you mentioned identity, and there's that like constant push and pull between the desire, which for me and my truth is that's our soul knowing. And
Right.
that's like, you know, what is possible for us and our potential. I've always been a believer in possibility and potential, but then based on the human parts of us that like, you know, but this is all we've known and this is safe over here and this
Mhm.
is who we know how to be.
Yeah.
And I was like, I'd been Becky the dance teacher since I was 19 years old, you know, and I decided in the end, ultimately the whispers got too loud for me. I felt quite suffocated by them in the end, and I didn't like that. And I was listening to a nervous system audio. It was literally exactly a year ago this week, exactly to
Mhm.
the week. It was the week before we broke up for summer. And the audio said, you are one decision away from a completely different life.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And I literally, in the middle of the country park with my dog, I just broke down into tears because I knew what that one decision was. I knew that I had to make that change and step away from the teaching, from the identity that I'd always known. And I just knew that I had to do it. But the other thing that I was, and it's almost, is it borderline like stupid or exceptionally courageous, is I was like, always had my spiritual beliefs. And
Right.
my spiritual beliefs are if you jump, the universe will catch you. So
Exactly.
I did finish my teaching career and transitioned out of that business with no plan as to
Hmm.
what was going to unfold next, because I also wanted to grow and challenge myself in multiple different ways. And from someone that had always been a control freak, always needed a plan, always needed to know what was coming next, I was like, actually, I want to be able to build a different life, not just professionally, but with myself and the relationship that I've got with myself. And I'm still in that process. You know, I genuinely feel like I know where the universe is guiding me and where I'm going to. But in these early stages, and it is still early stages, it's 8 months down the line, I'm learning so much more about myself. But that is the bit that we need to grasp in order to get the next thing. Like, people talk so much about manifestation or the
Right.
desire or the dream or the ambition or the achievement or the outcome. But all of those things require us to be a particular person. And so I'm definitely in that phase now of growing out of Becky the dance
Mhm.
teacher and the habits that she had and the thought processes that she had and the behaviors that she had, and creating now all of these new parts of what the next version of me is
Mhm.
going to need going forward. And going right back to the beginning thing about fear, honestly, to me, an identity shift and losing parts of you and navigating uncertainty is the most scariest thing that any of us can
Yeah.
experience.
Yeah. Absolutely.
It's terrifying.
Right.
It's terrifying.
Yeah. Wow. Thank you for sharing. I think so powerful for sharing your journey. And absolutely. I mean, I feel like I can resonate so much because I think a lot of people can, right? And I know we had this conversation before getting on the podcast is all of us going through an identity shift in different stages of our life, right? It can be in the beginning, it could be later on in business, in life, midlife crisis. I know some of my parents, some people say like after 50, it's a totally different identity shift in each stage. And especially like you said, a lot of people think like, I want this. And I love how you said it. It's like a desire, but I don't know what to do. I don't know how to do it. How do I overcome this fear? And a lot of people struggle to kind of step up and like actually shift the habits. That's where the hardest part is, right? And yeah, it's easy to say manifestation, but leaving your old self, and we're so conditioned, right? The whole conditioning of family, of society. And a lot of people think it's like a quick, okay, I shifted it and I moved on. And I love how he says 3 to 5 years, because for me, it took like 7, 8 years. And I went through like three identity shifts within 4 years. I just went through my identity shift right now that I would love to talk about as well. And it's a scary thing. I just absolutely should quote it. You're one decision away from the next chapter. It could just change your life. And that is something that really struggled with, right? And there was that fear. And it could look like fear of rejection, fear of failure, fear of attachment. I always had attachment wounds, right? I always attached to something that I couldn't go to the next level because I thought this is who I am. This is my identity that like my family told me to be. I was this like the good girl all the time. I would get like I had to shrink myself, right? And I couldn't speak up. And these are the things like, what if I speak up? What if they don't like me? What if they leave me? Right. So these are the kind of abandonment fears that I had that I wanted to express right now. And I'm pretty sure a lot of people who are listening. And, we talked about like, what are the different types of people? Like, this could show up even if you're a millionaire, if you're a billionaire, if you're a doctor, if you're an entrepreneur, if you're in corporate, VP, like all of this fear, all of this identity shifts happen at different levels. So, yeah, I love how you talked about that. And it's like you really have to, it takes time. And it is the scariest part ever, and that's why we have a nice community or people to kind of be in the right rooms and have that sisterhood to overcome it. But really being honest with yourself is the first step.
Yeah.
So,
I
yeah.
want to touch on something when you said about it takes time. And I listened to an audio this morning and I thought, oh, I'm having that and I'm going to use it like when I do my talks, like in schools, because it's something that everyone I think will be able to resonate with.
Hmm.
And it's like when we've got a seed. So, like, I believe again, like as humans, we're all like little seeds. Like, if we've got the right environment, if we've got the right attention, if we're looked after, like, we all blossom and we bloom and we can grow from this like gorgeous little seed into like this flower or this beautiful tree. But it's like when we first plant the seed, like there's like you're looking after it. You've got to make sure it gets the right sunlight and we've got to be watering it and we're taking care of it. But like literally for so long, we're still looking at dirt. And like that
Yeah.
to me is like, that's what personal growth is like. You feel like
Yeah.
you're doing all of this. Like I'm ridiculously self aware. Sometimes I think that's a bit of a curse. Like, but we feel like we're doing all of these things and we're like, but why is there nothing changing? Why is there nothing changing? But
Right.
it's only the externals are not changing yet, but actually there's lots going on
Mhm.
underneath the surface. There's lots going on within us, just like there is with this little seed under this dirt in this ground. That's, the roots are going downwards. All the stuff, in order to be able to hold external change, we have to do the internal growth. Like it
Right.
has to be there. But for a long time, we're looking, going, well, it's just dirt. It's just like there's nothing happening. Why? And that's why
Exactly.
so many people, I think, with personal development and things, like they just end up stopping because they
Right.
don't persist and continue long enough for like just this little shoot to come through,
Yeah.
but we don't plant a seed and get a tree the next day. Like that's not how it happens. It's a continuous process of doing everything that's required to nurture and blossom and bloom the growth like that we have. And like now, I mean, I'm a crier, right? So when I'm growing, I cry in
Mhm.
two ways. Like if I feel that like there's like a recognition or like my soul feels like then I can get emotional about something.
Right.
But
Yeah.
I'm also a messy crier when I'm like releasing and letting go, like you mentioned about certain wounds. And now I'm started going, yeah, it's watering my potential. All of these tears that like I'm shredding along the
Right.
way, like
Right.
because whilst I believe that we are all souls, we are humans and humans feel, and I'm a feeler. I
Right.
feel really deep, all of the things. And, growth, it really does require patience, so
Exactly.
much patience, so much care, so much nurture. And actually another thing that I believe is a lot of self-compassion. A
Right.
lot of self-compassion because our old identity is going to do its absolute hardest to keep us exactly where we're at
Right.
because that's what feels familiar. That's what we know. And the brain and the nervous system, that's where they love. They love that familiarity. They want that
Exactly.
safety. Anything outside and beyond that, it's like, whoa, 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 what are you doing? No, we don't have evidence for this. Like, we
Right.
can't, no, no, no. And it's about, which is why we have to do the small steps to expand us. It's about giving our nervous system and our brain evidence that this is okay. It can feel a bit uncomfortable,
Right.
but most of the time, the things that we fear when we actually then do it, it's never as bad as the stories that are the identity of ourselves has created to keep us like where we're going. And I also think as well, along with the self-compassion, giving ourselves acknowledgement for the praise in the journey. Because I think in a
Yeah.
world where there is so much focus in this world on outward stuff, the
Right.
outcomes
Yeah.
and the achievements and the end goal and the end destination. And I've always been an advocate throughout everything that I've done for acknowledging all of these steps along the journey
Right.
and being grateful of the process, because all of the steps within that process and all of that journey, that is the success that leads to that. Like,
Exactly.
this is not the bit that's successful. It's built right from the minute that we start. And I think that that can support when we're feeling these, the human feelings under fear are the self-doubt, the overthinking, the overwhelm, the hesitation. I'm a huge perfectionist, probably
Yeah.
to do with my dance, all of these things, they're all protection responses,
Right.
that say to just keep us where we're at. And if we can just show parts of our old self that our new self is safe, that's gradually how we grow. And also, going back to a powerful question, I heard a question recently and I was like, wow, that's powerful. And it said,
Mm.
who are you now that you weren't a year ago?
Mm. That's so powerful. Yeah.
Who are you now that you weren't a year ago? Because when we're in that journey, we don't always notice actually how much we're growing, how
Exactly.
much we're changing, how much we're evolving, all of the recognition. And I mean, I'm good at this now. I am going to own it. I'm going to own the fact that I'm good at it, and it's taken practice. I'm good at acknowledging and recognizing the things that I've done, because I make that a daily habit and a daily practice. Every day, at the end of every day, I journal what I'm grateful for, what I'm proud of, and what I'm celebrating. But for so many of us who have been grown up wanting to grow, wanting to achieve, it's always that should have done this, could have done that. That we
Right.
always just look at all of the things that we're not doing, and it's so important to take time to acknowledge what we are doing every single day. What are the steps that we're doing every single day to
Yeah.
support the version of ourselves that we want to be? Because then after 7 days, we've got all of those things to celebrate. Then after 28 days, we've got all of those things to celebrate. Then we get to 3 months, then we get to 6 months. And all of a sudden we arrive at that question that I just asked, which is, who were you a year ago that you weren't now? And when you go back and look at that, it's profound. If for some people who are really experiencing the shifts like we are, actually how much we've changed and grown within that time. And that's to hugely be celebrated, because it's not easy.
Mm-mm.
We can talk about it and we can share the emotions, but feeling it, it's hard. It is
Yeah.
really hard.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for sharing all of this. And whatever you said is just the most powerful thing I've heard. Honestly, it's really literally being grateful for each step. And I love what you said is yes, everyone out there, especially on social media, your family, whoever that is, they will judge you based on what's on the outside. So the hardest part, like you said, I think I had to go through is I didn't see evidence for a long time. And it was like 7 to 10 years of no evidence. And I'm sitting here like, I might give up, right? Where is this going? And I keep asking the universe, and I believe in God, like, when is this going to happen? When is it going to happen? And I realized, though, to your point, the success is really the internal. But looking back, even the 5, 10 months, not even like 10 months, like I'm looking for 10 years, like I'm looking at my for 1 or 2 years, the past 2 months. And now I've grown so much to the point that I'm just like, I can't believe it. And it's like nice. It's like you really feel proud of yourself. You feel so grateful that the universe is always watching you and the universe rewards you when you kind of grow internally, not the externally. It's the internal that's like, hey, universe is like, you know what? I'm gonna give you whatever you right because you've done the internal. That's the hardest part. It's like a diamond, right? The diamond doesn't just shine. It takes like so many years to kind of chisel it, and then that diamond shines. But this is the hardest part. And I like Becky, like honestly, the fact that you've gone through so much, you should be proud of yourself because a lot of people it's rare. A lot of people can't do what you and I are doing, right? So, and the fact
And
that you're sharing these steps to get there is amazing. Yeah, go
and
ahead.
I just want to actually reflect that back, because when you've said, like, in this last 2 months, like for you, that you've experienced in that last 2 months, that came as a result of all of that other learning and
Yeah,
all of that other time and all of that other growth and that persistence. And this is the thing, like we live in a world now where like
Exactly.
everything's like this, like
Right.
literally for the external world. Like when it
Right.
comes to ourselves, it is not like that. But I genuinely believe like you've had, that in the last 2 months,
Hmm.
because but you created basically the result of that throughout all of that process that came before that.
Right. Yeah.
And this is the bit that gets missed like so much because it wasn't really a 2 month thing. You've just mentioned 7 to 10 years. I mean,
Yeah.
that's going to be my takeaway from today because I'm sitting here 8 months down the line going, come on, universe. Like, I feel like I'm doing the work. Like, where's the evidence? Where's the thing?
Exactly.
Like, so the fact that you said 7 to 10 years, I'm going to be really quiet now with my 8 months down the line because I was like that is some commitment
Yeah.
and that is an different level of dedication and perseverance that
Mhm.
only those that have ever experienced that for themselves will know. I mean, the closest I can come to that is opening my own studio. Like I actually shared that on a podcast this morning, but I said, I do believe in dreams and ambitions and fulfillment because whilst I didn't achieve my first dream, which I now know that was because I couldn't hold an identity expansion,
Right.
that's actually where my story started and originated really was at 18. But I had a dream for over 4 years to open my own dance facility.
Hmm.
And that started off as just a vision. And it then, and I journaled on it and I visualized a little bit more and I'd go and look at I never gave up hope that I would open it. And I opened it. And
Yay.
so, when we get the evidence for the things that like, what is it? Because is it that we want? And to me, it's the perseverance and the commitment to get there. I genuinely wholeheartedly believe that a desire, an ambition, a dream, a goal, however anybody, a vision, however anybody wants to like whatever terminology for them, it's genuinely because we have capacity and capability to be able to do it. But in order to get there, there's lots of things that we've got to be able to overcome and build and grow and have. And I remember actually going back to my studio, I remember going to look at a studio or a place that I thought was going to be relevant for it. And they were like, oh, no, this has actually already been taken. And that was obviously by a local competitor because obviously the towns are not very big. And I came home and I absolutely sobbed to my husband. And he said, why are you crying? Why are you crying? Do you know, and this is honest answers truth. I said, because I think if they'd have told me it had been available, I'd have still been too scared to do it. And it was almost like the tears was like, oh, hang on a minute, I'm searching for it, but actually there's still a lot of fear there. And I
Yeah.
remember saying that. Even if she'd have said, yeah, this is available, I bet I'd have gone, not ready yet, but I'll just see whether another one comes up because it was
Hmm.
scary. But
Right.
actually that stop point and that acknowledgement of that fear in that situation, because it was unavailable, I then knew that if I came across the place, like I had to be courageous enough to be
Yeah.
able to do it. Like if you want this dream, Becky, if you want this ambition, if you want to achieve this certain things, we have to be courageous enough to take the fear with us on
Right.
the journey to be able to get to that point because
Yeah.
it's going to show up every single time we grow, we evolve, we do something new, we do something that's unfamiliar, or we're expanding. It's going to be there every single
Exactly.
step of the way. And that was quite a shock for me for a long time because I think you get to a point where you think, I've done loads of personal development now. And I think, it's constantly ongoing, and there's that saying, isn't the new level, new devil, and what could
Hmm.
be, fearful for somebody might not be fearful for somebody else, but
Right.
everybody inside, all of us feel that hesitation, self-doubt, overwhelm, overthinking, scaredness. And it's about, instead of going, I'm not ready, I can't do this is not
Yeah.
possible, it's then acknowledging, okay, I'm in a period of growth. And even
Right.
just naming it and saying that. And I say that now, like I've had where your period of growth over the last 2 months has
Mhm.
been, from what I'm seeing, like super positive and everything like that. Mine's been the opposite. I've been going to the depths of my
Right.
soul and I've been growing the
Right.
opposite way. And I've done a lot of crying and a lot, and I think, oh gosh. And then I keep coming back to just the language of, I'm in a period of growth. And that's the language that I've chose to put with it because eventually then over time, that becomes easier
Right.
because it's like, it's not, oh, this is never going to work out. This is not possible. I'm not
Exactly.
going to, it's going, I'm in a period of growth, you know? And
Yeah, I love that, and I love how you really own your emotions because that's something that a lot of women are like, "I don't know if I should cry," and I used to be like that, right? And
oh,
as a
I'm a crier.
woman, and I love how you're owning it, and that's how you should be, right? And I learned how to, like that was something that was from family conditioning, like the emotional unavailability thing, and I just would always suppress it. I was like, Maybe I shouldn't cry," or anything like that, and yeah, and, just like you said, before the 2 months of massive expansion for me, I went through a massive 5 months, like, from January, I invested in, like, 2 mentors, and I was like, "This is really difficult," and it's not easy for me, and I had to go through the depths of my soul, just like you said, Becky,
Yeah.
and every single wound triggered just came up to the point that I was like, mother wound, father wound, this abandoned wound, attachment wound, like you name it, rejection, failure, like all at once to the point that I was like, sometimes I would cry myself in the room. I was like, I don't have anyone to talk about this. Like my parents would never understand. If I talked to them, they would be like, go back to corporate. Like, why are you doing this? Like just stick to like your familiar self like you said, and I was like, no, my soul, and I know the universe is not going to like that, and that's not what he has in store for me, and I had to do this on my own, and I also want to talk about, yes, it is an isolating journey, which is why we're having these conversations, that you guys are all not alone through this process. And to Becky's point, I love how she said, just kind of say it out loud, right? I'm going through a period of transition. I'm just growing, and that's okay. A lot of women came to me right now, and she's like, Vina, I'm so sorry about this. I'm so sorry about that. And I'm like, there's no need to apologize. Like, I want you to just understand you're in a growth phase, and that's okay. I've been there. I was there before, and I'm still there. Like, all of us, to your point, it's going to be there now, 10 years from now, it's not just in your business, but even professionally. When you're a mother, when you have your first kid, when your kid goes to college, and then you become a grandmother, and it's always going to be there on a personal level. The fear is going to just carry with you. So I love what you said, Becky, about the fact that the fear is always going to be there. We just
Yeah.
need to understand, like, and be honest with ourselves and how to navigate that. And once you understand and navigate that, it's just a little easier down the road. Like, okay, this is that step I took before. I always look at it from, what does my old self say if she was here? What does my new self say she was here? Do I still want to be in that safe space, or do I actually want to go to the next level? Why do I want to go to the next level? I deserve it. Everyone deserves that, right? And you are capable. And I love how you talked about the capacity, right? And that's a new thing that I learned, that I was like, let me just go for it. But sometimes I would burn myself out
Yeah.
because I didn't have the internal capacity. I didn't have the energetic capacity. Some things would just not happen, even though I forced it, the external. And also, to your point, the external will not show up if your internal is not prepared for it. So the universe is like, you're not prepared for it. That's not going to work. Bye. Right. And I'm like, shoot, right. I need to work on my internal. That's a signal. And once I worked on it, then it's like universe is like, okay, Vina, you have the capacity. Now you're going to the next place. And like I said, it happened the past 2, 3 months that I actually really worked on that capacity. And there's that energy has expanded. The first, your identity expands and your energy expands. And then you realize, like, my God, there's a whole different version of Vina in this that I didn't even know. And I'm like, like you said, I learned so much about myself that I'm just like, my God, like I can't believe this is real me. Right. And I just kept my playing small. So it's a very challenging but a beautiful journey. And at the end of the other side of the breakthrough, you're gonna realize like you're gonna be a whole different like diamond out there. So it's just getting through these challenges, which is very important to be in the right room and the right environment and understand what it means on like a spiritual level. So yeah.
Yeah. And like in terms of expansion capacity, I try and make sure that like whatever area I'm wanting to grow in, that it's like that. Like, so I set certain words every year that I want to kind of align my year with. So I don't do like New Year's resolutions or anything like that. I have like words that I'm like, I want my year to align with these 3 words. And like one of my words this year was trust, because I thought, well,
Yeah.
I have to be able to do that. Like both from an external trust in the process and also the self-trust,
Exactly.
purpose and expansion. But like as silly as it sounds, like expansion for me, I was like, how can that play out in different places within my life? So me and my partner, my husband, like we
Yeah.
started to choose to go to different places for tea that we'd not been to
Great.
before. And it is such a ridiculously human small example. But
Yeah.
you get used to going to the same places. Oh, I wonder how many people
Exactly.
on here visit the same restaurants and then they go for the same dishes because it's like, because they know they like that type of food. And it's like,
Yeah.
okay, then. So I was like, let's go to new places. I mean, I love food. Like, food is a joy of life for me, so there's nothing I don't like. But I was like, "Ooh, if I go for like an Indian, I was always like the chicken tikka masala butter chicken
Right.
girl. I was like, I need to try something different.
Yeah.
And sometimes I've liked them and sometimes I haven't. And I know that that is such a really human example to give, but it's like, but the only way that we get to establish being able to do the different things is to do the different things. And also expansion can also be not always movement. So last week, actually last Wednesday, I had quite a quiet day, and old Becky would have needed, you use the word forcing, I would have needed to think of something to do to be productive. I would have needed to force productivity and everything. But it was
Right.
an absolutely glorious day. And bearing in mind, I've just shared, I'm in like a real period of growth. And I stopped for a minute, big advocate for the intentional pause. And I genuinely was like, what do I need most today? What's going to align the best for me today? And my answer was going and sitting in my garden and
Yeah. Yeah.
actually taking a step back, because actually expansion can also be slowing down. Like so many
Exactly.
people find it really difficult to slow down, like
Right.
slowing down and being still and stepping back. They support growth. Like growth doesn't always have to be doing.
Exactly.
Growth can sometimes be not doing. Growth can sometimes be pausing. Growth can sometimes be integration.
Yeah.
So ultimately, the expansion that it comes from doing the action that aligns, and we're getting into my framework here a little bit, that aligns with the version of ourselves that we're trying to create. And my question last week was not just what I need in that moment, but what do I want future Becky to be able to do? Like, do I want to be a person all the time that's creating everything? Or do I want to be a person that trusts herself to step back and give herself what she needs in a moment of actually, like, throughout this period of growth, I just need to be still right now and being out in the sun. And
Right.
it still was growth in a way, because then it's like, I did a little bit of a search, trusted that the universe would drop me the meditation that I needed to
Mhm.
hear in that moment. And it was all about self-trust and slowing down and stepping back. And I was like, here we
Yeah.
go.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I was like, you just confirmed ultimately what I knew in
Right.
myself,
Right.
and that's the biggest thing. It's like we have to trust that we are giving ourselves what the next version of us needs,
Exactly.
even if it feels a little bit uncomfortable when we're doing it. The self-trust and working with that inner knowing and that intuition is incredibly important, I
Right.
think.
Mhm.
And ultimately, I mean, to me, it should be something that's taught. Like in educate, we're given so much information in education, and
Right.
honestly, I feel like as humans, it would change the entire world if people were taught how to connect with themselves and what they need more, and then we're able to honor that without fearing what then other people might think or what it might look like, because the most important relationship that we create is the one with ourselves.
Yeah, absolutely. Everything you just hit the nail on the head on all of it. And to go back to your small steps of just eating out, that's exactly every week is what I've been doing, even this weekend, right? And I was like, I always go to the same mall and everything. And I was like, I just need to go to a different restaurant for once. And I tried it. And I went with my mom and she was like, you know what, Vina, no, let's just stick with it. I was like, no, like, let's just try it. If it's not good, it's fine. Not the end of the world. Let's just try it. And it ended up being really good, honestly. But just kind of going and taking that first step, like you said, it seems simple, but it's not as like simple as you think, right? Just starting off is really small.
Yeah.
And it's very difficult, right? At times when we just kind of the expansion phase is like the next level of growth. And it's really you just have to take the first steps. And it looks different for each people, for each person, right? So it could be in, like with your partner, or it could be for me, it was more about my business, right? The wealth that it looked like. What was the next thing? Should I invest in this? It was a simple thing because I struggled to always invest in myself. And I went to a coach. She was like, Mia, think about like what you want to invest in. It's like a tool. Money is a tool to get you to that expansion level. And when I reframed that mindset, I was like, that is true. The universe gave me this cash flow or whatever to get me to the next level. Why am I playing small? Why am I making it like all like save it for something else, right? So I was like, actually, I did it, and I feel very happy because it expanded me even more in my capacity. And I know that you talked about, the different. I know what were you saying about the other things that you said? I forgot.
I don't know now. I just get on
Yeah,
a roll and then I just talk and
yeah.
then
I
I'm
think
like,
I'm
I
just
don't know. Like
so
we were in a flow. I have no idea. I actually did a talk at a festival a couple of weeks ago. And I actually challenged myself. I was like, I'm going to turn up and I want to deliver my
yeah,
whole talk. Like there was no slides or anything like that. I was like, I'm literally just going to see where this talk goes. And I
yeah,
said something. And then at the end, this lady went, could you just go back to what you said at point one? What did you say? And I went, I have
right,
absolutely no idea. Because I was like, it felt like it was like such in the moment and just like being
right.
guided that I was like, yeah, I can't remember. I'm really sorry about that. And to be fair, someone else had wrote it down, but I was like, I don't know.
Yeah, no, everything you said was right on point about the identity shifts. And yeah, we were just like in flow, right? And when we're enjoying it and when you've been through it and I've been through it, it's just we're kind of just really in expansion. And going to the next level is the most rewarding thing, right? And I'm so excited to talk about this. And I want to go into the next question of letting go, right? And what are some personalities that you had to let go? And I know we touched on this a bit, but what I can
Oof.
can you give some sharing examples of what had to like die a little bit to kind of be like, you know what, this is the next version, right? What are the different personalities? If you can just kind of share it a little bit more in detail.
So I've got 7 that I talk about a lot kind of in my socials. And so my 7, I call them like my voices of protection. So one of them, I'll go through each one. So one of them is comparison.
Yeah,
So straight away, like I, in November 2025, stepped into a brand new path, genuinely believed that, this is the direction that I'm being guided into. And straight away, looking around at people that are in chapter 20 and I'm like, still writing the introduction and thinking, oh my God, I'm not able to do this. So like comparison
right,
is a fear response. And we have to just remember that everybody starts off in a chapter 1. Like everybody starts off in their journey. And there are some people now who will be, and I don't even like the use, I hate the terms like ahead or behind. I just say
right,
different phases of journey. There will be some people listening to this who have done lots of identity work and they're further ahead on their journey and their process is now easier. And there's other people that at the moment they might be like, oh, I've not come across that yet. I don't really know what, but eventually they might do. It's just acknowledging where you are in the moment and just being proud of the steps that we are doing and trying not to like look at what everyone else is doing. And I
mhm,
genuinely believe that if you build from heart and soul, even in business, like I didn't used to go around and look at what other dance schools were doing. Like mine was always quite different because I didn't do exams and I didn't do a lot of the things that other places did because I wanted to build it differently. So I just focused on what I wanted to do. And I think, again, it comes back to that focusing on us. So when we start to compare and go outwards, it's
yeah,
bringing it back to us. But with anything, it's awareness. So comparison, being a control freak.
oh yeah,
So I was somebody who, like, I needed to know everything about everything. I needed
right,
to be in control. Ultimately, that's a safety mechanism as well. But then I now purposely do things that mean that there is. I mean, I've never been in as least control as to what I am now because I literally threw myself into an unknown situation,
right,
you know, but we go through life when we're a control freak thinking that if we make this decision it'll lead to this and it'll lead to this and it'll lead to this, and that's all just a story that we've told ourselves in our head. Like
yeah,
there is literally
yeah,
there's no guarantees to anything. So like it is interesting because like we're going on holiday next Monday and like my husband goes online and he's done like a full tour of like the hotel and everything. Whereas I'm now just like, I'm going to turn up and see what it's like when I'm there.
Right.
So I'm choosing to live like in the moment, like more. So relinquishing, but my biggest thing of control, like ultimately I was a business owner and I was the CEO and I controlled and knew everything. And I spent 3 years delegating and giving those pieces away to people. That was hard, but yet also the most beautiful thing to then watch other people step into their next level and their expansion by me giving away my control and seeing them being able to do it was the most gorgeous feeling. And actually, once I'd started giving it away and it were good, I was like, oh, this is all right, this. You know,
Yeah.
if you'd have said to me 2 years ago that I would be in this situation now as, you know, as still an owner of a business that has a monthly leadership meeting, and that's pretty much the only involvement that I have with it, I'd have been like, don't be so ridiculous.
Mhm.
Like, but here we are, you know, overthinking. I used to be a massive overthinker because
Right.
I would get really bogged down with whether it was the right or the wrong decision. And I think that that's a lot of people. And what now I say is ultimately there's two different sayings that I have with this because it one kind of each one will resonate with somebody different. If it's not a definite yes, it's a no. So like sometimes we say, you know, and our intuition will tell us like, to
Exactly.
me, we have a feeling about something, but I'm the person that I get the feeling and then someone wants me to explain the feeling and I'm like, well, I can't tell you why I don't want to do it. I just don't want to do
Right.
it. Or I can't
Right.
tell you why I think that's a really good idea. I just feel like it's a really good idea. So the brain wants answers and logic, but ultimately the desire and the intuition and the inner knowing and the guidance, it's just, it knows it's a yes or a no. And anything after that is just negotiation. So if it's not a definite yes, it's a no. But then the other thing is, it's about accepting that there are no wrong decisions. So I think that's then building up the
Mm.
self-trust.
Yeah.
Just make the decision that you believe is the right decision at the time. If that then turns out that things, again, we just come back to expectations, that doesn't turn out how we expected it, we only created expectations based on our own story and our own narrative. But if something goes different to how we
Okay.
planned, it's going to give us learning and it's going to give us
Right.
growth. So if we lose it's a right or a wrong decision, it's just a decision. And even if it's not the one that we thought would go a particular way, it's still supporting the direction that we're going because we have to trust that we made that decision for a reason. So
Yeah.
then it's trusting ourselves. Like you said about investment, I've made investment in the past. I didn't get a return on it in the way that I thought. But do you
Mhm.
know what? I still
Yeah.
stand by the fact that I made that because I trusted myself. In that moment, it was genuinely, wholeheartedly the right thing for
Right.
me to do.
Right.
And it's about standing by that and owning our decisions. And if we can bring it inwards and own that, which is why I don't like it when people ask people for their opinions, because other people's opinions are going to
Exactly.
be based on their own experiences, their own limitations, their own fears, their own knowledge. It's like, but what feels true for you? Overwhelm is another one.
Oh yeah.
Like, oh
Yeah.
my gosh. So I'm super passionate, super deep, like to have things going on, but then there's like such a balance between all of a sudden, then I'm like, oh my God, there's too much going on.
Exactly.
So I had to let go of like my overwhelm stuff, which now I will then just come back to what is one thing that I can do today that's going to support me. And that one thing last Wednesday, we're going and sitting in my garden. That one
Mhm.
thing last Wednesday, because that reduced my overwhelm because I was like, where do I go next? What do I do next? I feel like this is not working. I feel like that's not working. So continuing to be in that space is not helpful. So stepping back. So the overwhelm, I think, is when there's so much stuff. It's like we have to create space there. We have to step back, make everything smaller. Perfectionism, my God. I genuinely think that came from my dancing because
Yeah. Yeah.
dance is very much like that needs to be turned out there. That needs to be stretched there. That, you know, when you sort of particularly in a ballet type, you know, I personally love more of like the musical theatre and the jazz and the stuff that's like expressive, you know,
Yeah.
but when you're technically learning something,
Right.
it's never about what you've done. It's always about what you could do better, what you could do better, what you could do better, what you could do
Mm.
better, doing more and doing more and doing more. And also, you know, perfectionism, it's because maybe we have that fear of failure. We have that fear
Yeah.
of like, you know, whereas now, again, going back to what I said about celebrating the process is when I started out on this journey, I was like, I have to ditch my perfectionism. My success is just in the steps that I'm doing.
Right.
You know, I'm praising myself for choosing to to step forward for something. And I just gave an example earlier. So like when we used to do auditions at dance, I would say to everybody that put themselves forward for that audition is successful. And like the kids would be like, well, what do you mean? Like, there's only one part. Why are we all successful? Because
Yeah.
I'm like, because you're choosing to put yourself forward and to expand. Whereas like, if we just become crippled by being a perfectionist, it's like, oh, well, if I don't think I'm even going to do that thing, like, then we just don't. We have to be okay with the process. So
Yeah.
now I've ditched, a lot of the perfectionist in me has gone. And I think, I said with the festival, there's no way that a few years ago I'd have been able to turn up and think that I could deliver a talk with no planning or no preparation. But what I've built over time is self-trust. I've built self-trust to be able to do that. And at school and training as a teacher, it's always in your planning. It's always in your preparation. And most of the time, my lessons that were the best were the ones that were just allowed to unfold. And
Exactly.
just being in that journey. Self-pressure, that's another big one.
Yeah.
Sometimes, I think again, if you're somebody that is used to achieving and used to moving forward with things and I like to achieve things, like I do. It's a natural part of who I am, but then also now I'm not prepared to be the version of myself from a few years ago.
Yeah.
And I've been exceptionally intentional in this chapter that it may take me 3 or 4 times as long to get to wherever it is, because we'll see, who knows on that journey where things might go. Because there's now decisions where like I do choose my family over choosing something to do with my work, if that's more important to me, because they're the decisions that in the past I put myself under pressure. And I created a belief that, well, if I've got my own business, like I have to be doing it 24/7 and I have to be like, and actually that created me quite an unhealthy relationship
Right.
with my business. And in the end, I was like, this is not what I want. Like, and I made a decision. And very early on in January this year, I was at a conference and it was 2 days and I left a day early to come home and take my daughter to the theatre because it was like, that was important to me. But in the
Yeah.
past, I'd have put pressure on myself to like, to
Exactly.
stay there and to do that. And then I'd have felt guilty that I worked with my child. So we have to come back in. What is aligning us with the future version? Again, we're coming back to fear theory here, self-pressure. I think so many of us, they put a lot of self-pressure on ourselves.
Right.
And when we go into self-compassion, we can relinquish that and celebrate the process, because then if we're celebrating the process, we can let go of the pressure, we can let go of the perfectionism, we can let go of
Exactly.
all of the things that like come up. And then lastly, the biggest one for me, and I've definitely not overcome it, and there's some of these that I don't experience as much as I used to, but there's still times where they come up and give you a little bit of a
Right.
nudge and a bit of a tap just to
Yeah.
remind you, or just to see whether you've like fully kind of, got rid of it or healed it or what have you, is self-doubt.
Yeah.
I think my biggest two, because they were the ones that started at 18-year-old me in the identity expansion. I wanted to be a professional dancer and I was a really good dancer, really natural, very talented. I do believe I'd got potential to turn it into a career, because that's why I ended up at dance college. But within 3 months, I'd left because I'd never been in environments that has stretched me. Well, I didn't, ultimately looking back now, what we know now, I didn't have capacity to hold that identity
Right.
expansion. And I experienced comparison, looking around at everyone else, at how amazing they were, and self-doubt in a way that was absolutely crippling. And they are probably now the two that, from 18-year-old me, they are the two that I have to be most aware of, that come up. And when the doubt is there, I have to try and remind myself. But they're my 7. And ultimately, this is why growth is so difficult, because what I say is that they're my 7 protection responses. But then on the other side of that, with expansion, we literally have potential and possibility and personal growth. So we've got a team of 3 over here: personal potential, personal growth, possibility and potential. But we've got these 3 trying to compete with these 7 over here,
Exactly.
and there's others. And I mean, when I did a podcast the other week and the lady went, yeah, I've got that one. Oh, yeah, that's me too.
Yes,
Oh, yeah, do that one. And I was like, so, and these are all like, they're all the human things. And
right.
it's about being aware of them. And, all of those things are fear responses. And this is why, my fear theory and the framework on that supports people to just acknowledge those things,
Yeah.
but then meet and lead differently when that fear is there.
Absolutely. Wow, this is amazing. And yes, those 7 are the main ones, and I went through every single one of them, and I'm still going through it. Especially, yeah, self-doubt keeps coming in, and I was in a mastermind, and I hosted a mastermind, and she was telling me I was saying, like, the language. I was like, "If, maybe," and she was like, "Vina, like, I can see that self-doubt." And she was holding me accountable, and she was like, "We wanna reframe that language, right? It will happen. It's a matter of time," right? And I was like, "That is true," right? And we have to reframe these things. Yeah, we have to know what we're capable of, and we have to keep working on it. That's why we're here today, right? The inner work that we're doing. God, universe, whoever you believe in knows that we're capable of overcoming these fears, right? Yes, we have all of these wounds. These are just tests for us, right? And when we go deeper and get honest with ourselves, like you said, and take it step by step, don't worry about the time. The universe will give you and reward you whatever you want, and that external but let go of the time. And
Absolutely.
and that's exactly part of, like, the perfectionism. I'm a huge perfectionist. I was stagnant for so long, those 7 to 10 years, I was just stagnant. Nothing, like, literally moved because of my perfectionism, and I was like and I also learned dance. Like, I learned dance of 17 years of Indian classical. I had a very perfectionist teacher. It was like literally I had to do like a 90-degree kind of like, hand movements. And she would just get so mad if it wasn't 90 degrees. And then I have parents who are super perfectionists even till today. Like if something wasn't on the table correctly, like move it. Like it was just terrible to the point I was like, you know what? Even if I start like a website or even if I post something, like it has to be super perfect. And I was like, but why does it have to be perfect? Right. And I went through all of this coaching and internal work saying, like, what happens if it's not perfect? Like, take the first step, even if you're not ready. And I had to overcome that. And I was like, it's okay to share some of my flaws and be vulnerable and not have to look perfect and decondition that to saying, like, it's fine. Right.
Yeah.
And that took me a long time. I think a lot of us can relate, a lot of women, especially perfectionism is coming from that conditioning. And also, yeah, that was what I wanted to talk about was the overwhelm. This is a huge thing for me. I'm just expanding like so much for the 3 months after my inner work healing. So my healing finished for the past 9 years. And then I just go into my breakthrough, but it's expanding tremendously. And yeah, I love what you said that before that growth is more of like also slowing down. And that's a huge thing for me. That was a lesson for me that I'm the kind of person who's a huge go getter. I just have to make things happen so quickly. And it tested my patience. And I was like, why is it not happening? Why is it happening? But at the end of the day, the universe is like, well, I'm going to be testing your patience.
Yeah.
It might take another year, Vina. It might take another 2 years. I'm like, wait, what? I stepped into it and now I don't have it yet. But yeah, it was really to test your patience and your resilience. And I love what you said about going to your garden because this weekend I was like, I even told my team, I'm like, I'm not going to answer any messages. I don't expect anyone to work on weekends, and that's a boundary.
Do you work
And
on a weekend?
sorry?
Do you work on a weekend?
No, I don't. I used to. Now
Ah,
yeah, I was like, I
yeah,
didn't work Saturday, Sundays. I literally didn't even open a message. I was like, let me just enjoy the moment. And I had a coconut water and I just truly enjoyed it. Every time I would use my old self would be like, okay, let me check my email. Let me check my phone. Let me send this message. Oh, this one person lead responded on LinkedIn. I just truly went inward and felt it. I felt the breeze. I felt the sun. I felt the coconut water. I was drinking it. It was a feeling, right? That cannot be explained. And it was really nice just being in my feminine energy and to your point, really enjoying the process.
Yeah.
I letting go of control is the hardest thing that I had to do more than anything. So I was a control freak. I got it from my parents. I even now I have to know exactly what's happening. And letting go is trusting in yourself and the universe. The universe is your if you had a father figure, you trust your father, right? To give you what you need. And your parents, it's like that. And we sometimes don't believe that it will happen because we need to see evidence, but it will happen, right? So
Absolutely. I've just
yeah.
got a couple of things actually that you just said. So when you mentioned about perfectionism straight away, I was like, do you know what? And then that's where, to me, the pressure comes from, because we put pressure on ourselves to create the thing to like be perfect. So they're actually really quite closely interlinked. Do you resonate with that?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
And then
Yes.
when you'd said about stepping back, and again, I love analogies. I think it's because I worked with children for so long that I just always love to talk in analogies. But two things, like when we use our phone, like we all have a phone, it's like we have to charge it at the end of a day, like in order
Right.
for it to have like the battery going forward. So,
Yeah,
like that for starters is just, they're like your intermittent times of rest. But
yeah,
then the even a better example, because even when it's charging, you can still use it when it's on charge, even though it's on its
yeah,
battery. But when that iPhone is doing an iOS upgrade, we can't use it. It goes
yeah,
offline to do that. And
exactly.
ultimately, an iOS upgrade is a system upgrade. And I think
Mhm.
as humans, we need to
Yeah,
honor ourselves that same. So to me, last Wednesday, when I'm in my garden, that's me on a system update.
yes,
That's me
yes,
not being available because right now I have to be unavailable for my system upgrades. And
yeah,
I think we have to normalize that. When I obviously I was like, do you work on a weekend? Like if you want to or choose to or anything, but from someone that had, when I first started out my business, I had zero boundaries, because
yeah,
I felt like that's what I had to do. I felt like I had to be available to everybody all the time. I felt like I had to give really like instantaneous replies because,
yeah,
well, this is what you sign up for when you have your own business.
exactly.
This is all part and parcel of it, Becky. This is what actually comes with it. And then it just got to where I was like, I literally felt like work just because in the early days, well, one, I was super young, but when you're passionate about something and you love
Right.
something,
Yeah,
it doesn't feel like work until
exactly.
then it gets to the point where, hang on a minute, my behavior has now created an expectation like
Mhm.
on people. And now I want to change the behavior and not answer messages about ball issues at 7 o'clock on a Saturday night. And all of a sudden and there was a lot of like sort of shifting, but I did that within my old business. I created actually really firm boundaries.
Yeah,
And I think boundaries are so healthy. Like
it is.
they have such a bad rap. I think boundaries, and for so many people, they're so negative. And I think they are one of the most important things as a business owner, as an entrepreneur, as a CEO, even as a parent. Like, it's where we're then able to create time to then be, to go offline, to fill
Right.
up, to have those points. It is so important that we have that. That's like, I don't respond to this and I don't, all of those things. I'm going on holiday next week. My social media will be scheduled. That's me off.
Mhm.
I am offline for 2 weeks. ChatGPT will come off my phone. Messenger will come off my phone. My emails will come off
Amazing.
all of it. And then my work phone will get stayed at home because that's my boundary. This is
Right.
my time to recharge. And my family deserve my full attention in that time. And,
Yeah.
now if I'm in my office, I don't even have my personal phone near me. Like it can be a bit of a running joke in my like family that like, we can't get hold of you when you're working. And I'm like, no, because when I'm working, this is my work time, because now we're constantly distracted by pings and stuff going off
True.
around. I don't have notifications on things. So I focus and I'm intentional with where my energy is
Right.
within that point and my boundaries. Then when I finish work today, then I'll go and see if somebody's contacted me or what, because then I can give them my energy. And it's like that supports overwhelm, I think, as well. But, boundaries support
Exactly.
our over because we've got all these different things that we have to navigate and do. If I'm going to do some creative work, my phone goes to where nobody can ring me, because
Yeah.
then it's like I'm putting myself into the zone, and it's just exploring with different ways. But actually what we've realized under all of this, it's about working with our energy and what
Exactly.
works and what
Yeah.
works for us, and then not being scared to actually then do the things that we feel and know are right for us and what works for us, because we're all so different. We are
Right.
all so different.
Yeah, absolutely. The boundaries thing was a huge thing. Just to give you an example, and I love what you talked about the analogy of the operating system. Exactly, right? It's a you're upgrading the operating system. And I love how you really are intentional about your phone and you're like, no work, no apps, no anything on travel. Like that is like something I really advocate for because every person, even on vacation, like I went to the mall and everyone's on their phone. And I'm like, why are you at the mall then? Like, there's a reason why you're here at the mall, you're playing games or whatever that is, right? You're gardening or you're just relaxing at the beach to recharge, right? And that's like very important. And the boundaries thing. So I was actually hiring and I was like, I have a strict boundary. And I know you said the boundaries are a bad rep. It is. I do get a bad rep for setting boundaries, but I'm very strict with that because I'm very intentional with my time and energy. And that's something that
Absolutely.
like I had zero boundaries, like you said too, because I'm a very empathetic person and I would just say yes to everything. And it comes from lived experience. And it really burned myself out and it hurt me actually more. So I was like, I don't care what anyone thinks if they don't like me for setting this boundary. It's not the right person. So I was like, I'm not going to stay, in a Zoom and wait for someone for more than 5 minutes, right? Max is 5 minutes. And I said that to someone, or I also set expectations like, if you cannot make it, let me know, like an hour ahead of time. And that's something that I really value. And I really am an identity led and a value led
Yeah.
person, And I told her that. And she told me, like, had me waiting for 10 minutes. I was like, okay, well, that's fine. I did not wait for 10 minutes. It was past 5. And I was like, hey, I've been waiting for 5 minutes. If you want to reschedule, fine. And I was just a little nice enough to reschedule. And she was pretty much defensive. Like, you know what? I had a technical issue. Oh my God. Like, I don't know if this is the right thing. I was just 5 minutes. And I was very strict with that boundary. Yes, it got a bad rep. Maybe she didn't like me for that, but I was standing and owning it. And I was proud of owning it. And
Mm.
it's very important because especially not only as like a mother or a daughter or whatever, but as a CEO, I was stepping into my CEO identity, which I usually don't do. And I was like, if I'm in my business, I'm a CEO and I'm hiring, yes, there's a side of me that's like empathetic and I felt bad. But at the same time, it was like, let me wear my CEO hat. And you can be both, right? And I
Yeah.
know some people are like, oh my God, like you're just being so rude. I was like, this is the CEO. Right? I need to protect my time to the T. And I
Yeah.
had someone said that and I partnered with 7 figures and he was like, Mina, if you're going into 6, 7 figures, 8 figures, like time is your most precious asset. It's nothing else. Time and energy. So you did the right thing. And
Yeah.
boundaries are the most important thing in that. And I honestly felt good. At first I was like the old self would have been like, oh my God,
The fear.
yeah, and I was like, "What will she think? Like, oh my God, now she doesn't like me." And I was like, "No, right? The new
Yeah.
self is me. I'm owning it." And I was proud. Like, this is how you expand. This is a sign of growth,
Yeah.
right? So these are the kind of things that I want to share because a lot of women really struggle with the boundary. It's a huge challenge that people are still facing even
Oh,
now. So,
I've got really strong boundaries. And I think like you're talking there about a business one and it being uncomfortable. And I think the most uncomfortable one that we ever implemented at the dance academy, and it was uncomfortable, but it was absolutely the best thing, is that we changed our payments to direct debit on the first of the month. And still sometimes there were direct debits that would be unsuccessful and then they would still bring their child to dance and you're still chasing. And I got to where I was like, this wouldn't go on in any other, like we can't go to the supermarket if we can't pay for our shopping. So we
right,
changed our policy to where like, if your direct debit is unsuccessful, your child isn't able to attend classes until it
mhm,
is cleared. And I remember my mother-in-law going, you can't do that. That's horrendous, Becky. You can't do that to the children. And I said, I'm not doing that to the children. I said, if their parents are not able to pay their fees, as blunt as this sounds, that's actually not my problem. Like they've gone into an
right,
agreement knowing that it's this amount on the first of every month. You will get some who then might reach out and be like, oh, I'm having challenges. Like, that's fine. I understand that. But they can't come until. And as soon as we made that rule, and it stopped any because the rule was just a blanket rule for everybody. It didn't matter under what circumstances. I want people that are able to, I teach identity and self-leadership, but actually within my academy, even with the children, I was the person where you get, oh, can you just send me some more information about that, Becky? And I'd be like, the information was sent in the email titled whatever. And then they've got to go and find that information, because it's
Exactly.
like, I realized in the end, I was teaching like sometimes the parents, like as
Right.
much as the kids, like, oh, we've got a competition this weekend. What's the postcode? No idea. Google it. Like, I'm
Yeah,
not here to give you the answers, like, for
exactly.
things. I would be sometimes like, please, can you tell me the term dates? Please refer to the parent pack, because it's
Yeah.
like they would ask me questions. Like, literally, sometimes I felt like Alexa, like, hey, Becky, can I have the answer to this?
Right.
Like, hey.
Yeah.
And it's like, no. And in the end, I was like, my boundaries are, if they've had that information already, I will tell them where they can find that information, but
Right.
I'm not going to re-give that information again. And over time, people stopped asking for the information because they knew that I would just tell them where to go and find
Yeah.
it, you know,
Yeah. Yeah.
because that's the same. I'm not there in the emails to answer questions that I've already given you the answers to. Go and
Right.
find them.
Yeah,
Like,
exactly. Yeah, and this is a huge thing, like, overgiving is a huge another one, like, you talked about
yeah,
that, that was one of them for
people
me.
pleasing.
And I still tend it's part of the process. Like, I told my team is keep coming to me like, "Yeah, can you do this?" Which is nice, right? Like, I like the fact that they're engaging with me, but I was like, "I just answered this in the video, like, go back to the recording, go back to this, or you can, like, share it with my center manager or whatever." And it feels like, that's something that I need to, like, really protect my time because I used to always babysit people, and I'm like, "I'm
Yeah.
not here to this is like a whole different version of me." And it's in that when you're stepping into that new version, expanding, you're gonna go back to your old ways, right? Like you said, it's
But
it's it's a up and down, push and
yeah.
pull.
But do you
It's
know as
hard.
well, do you not think that by just listening to you, then if they come and ask you and then like say it's in the video of this, but indirectly, in fact, or even directly, by actually then giving people the instruction to go and do it for themselves, that actually builds their own growth and
Exactly.
their own expansion and their own confidence, because people come and ask questions because they're a little bit uncertain, really, but actually by not giving the answers and by holding our
Right.
boundaries, we're supporting their growth as well. So going back to what you've said about the call with tech issues, I've had that a couple of times. So now if I've got to be on somewhere like 5 minutes before, like today, you were like, right, we'll meet at 5 to, and I was like, brilliant. So I was trying to log on at 10 to, because
Yeah,
it's like, then you're allowing for if there's any issues, like with
exactly.
anything. So then there's a learning in everything. But I
Right.
just think if I'm the person that claps the boundaries. Like, if I ask somebody to do something and it's like, I'm not able to do that because I don't have capacity, or this is, and again, I think that needs to be, something I've never had a corporate environment, so I can't say that, but I do have friends that are within that environment. And I think from what they say, it does need to be more brought in to be okay with like not putting things on and being like, actually, I'm at capacity. I can't do that right now. And actually protecting and being able to say no, and having those boundaries, because everyone would operate
Yeah.
better and more comfortably with I'm at capacity with what I've got here. So whilst I really want to take that off you, I'm not able to do that, and being able to say no rather than saying yes. And then the overwhelm comes because then we've got too much stuff that we need to be dealing with.
Yeah, exactly. And each one of the 7 things, in order to overcome it, it's just that practice. It's like taking that first step.
Yeah.
Yes, you might go backward, you can go forward, backward. I'm still doing that, right? It's never ending, but being consistent at it. And like you said, the commitment to it, the commitment to right. So wait, like being self-aware, am I overgiving? Okay, so let me set my boundary. Okay, I'm overgiving. Let me set my boundary. And then I consistently set the boundary. Now it's like easy. Like my brain's like, okay,
Yeah.
boundary, boundary, boundary. And you overcome that within. If you keep doing that in 2, 3 months, it's just your brain's like, okay, well, boundary.
Yeah.
No.
And I just
Yeah.
absolutely. And I'm glad that you've brought this up, actually, because this links into a different part of the fear theory that my friend actually asked me. So sometimes we experience fear before we do something because it's like protection, or it's uncertain, it's unknown. Sometimes the fear will come after, because we've done something that we don't normally do. So when we implement that boundary that we don't normally put, when we say no because we actually mean no in this situation instead of yes, when we do, the fear, even though it feels right at the time to say that, that'll then come up afterwards. Then
Right.
we'll overthink what we should have done because it's
Exactly.
still, the fear will still try and protect the old identity as much as possible. So fear's not always like something that comes beforehand. Sometimes it will come up after. If you go into a situation and you do something differently, that fear and that old identity is going to have you questioning what you've just done. And then, like you say, it's about then going, but does the behavior, does what I've just done, does that align with the future version, like,
Exactly.
of me? And this is probably a good time maybe to from actually to talk about the fear theory framework, because it's actually super simple and there's lots of parts that we've touched on it today. But ultimately, the F part is future focus. So that is, who am I becoming? So whether the fear is there or before or after, when I'm feeling that fear, it is tuning in to who am I becoming, the version that I want to be, the vision that I'm moving towards. But
Yeah.
even if it's a vision, it's still who we are. Because I believe that it's all, we've talked about it so much, the internals.
Right.
So it's about, who do I want to represent going forward? That is the F. The E is then the expansion capacity. So
Right.
this is then, as we're moving towards this version of ourselves, this is recognizing, understanding, and navigating the internal experiences and emotions that come up as we become this version of ourselves here in the future. And this is the messy bit. And there's so many different parts of this, because like we've talked about wounds today. Lots of us are carrying different traumas around, different experiences. There is so much to unpack within this, but in its simplest of forms, it's just recognizing that whatever we're experiencing is because it's a new, unfamiliar, or unknown way of being.
Yeah.
Then A is aligned action, and it's then, what is the action that I can take that, even though, and I do my F backwards for this reason, that even though I've got all of this stuff going on, the aligned action is taking me in the direction to who I want to be.
Exactly.
And whether that aligned action is that one step forward that we talked about, whether it's where self-trust and courage come together and we take that step forward, or the aligned action is what mine was last week. Is it an intentional pause? Is it a step back? Is it a slowdown? Is it that we need an integration right now? But it's whether, is this action right now, yes or no, supporting the version of me that I want to become? And then R is reinforcing identity. Because ultimately we can rewire our brain. We can support our nervous system through changes. So the brain loves repetition. The way that we think now and what we do stuff, it's all because we've been doing it long enough, and it's repetition and it's conditioning and it's all of the beliefs that we hold. It's
Right.
possible to create new ones. So R is reinforcing the identity through repetition and reflection of the version that we want to become. So it's
Yeah.
all about this future focus all the time and this becoming and this growth, reinforcing by taking the aligned action, by acknowledging the feelings that we're feeling, to then move forward to the version of ourselves that we want to become. And that is where then this part is where we strengthen and stabilize the version that we're becoming. And then when we've kind of hit that little bit, then all of a sudden we get a new challenge and we start the process all over again. Because
Absolutely.
basically it's just a continuous framework. So it's fear. I'm feeling this, like this is where I'm going to. Just loads of it. Most of us have got dreams, goals, ambitions, things that we want to do, and that feels all really exciting. And that's amazing. And then we start going towards it, and then we feel that fear.
Right.
And it's then going, okay, this is not telling me to stop now. This is my opportunity to grow, my opportunity to expand. How can I move through this? Who am I being? Building my expansion capacity, continually taking the aligned action, reinforcing the identity of who I'm going to be. And like you've said, then all of a sudden, when you do implement that boundary, practice you mentioned, I'm all about the
Right.
process, that we do it again and again and again and again and again. And then all of a sudden, we are that person. And going back to right at the beginning when I was like, who are you now that you weren't a year ago? That's just because you've continually done that process. You've
Yeah.
felt those fears. You've, built the expansion to hold it, taken the aligned action and reinforced the identity that then all of a sudden now, that's actually who you are. But it wasn't who you were before,
Yeah.
I wasn't the person a few years ago that
Exactly.
could be on the outside of my business and have a team of people
Right.
running my business. Like,
Yeah.
honestly, I would have been like, absolutely not. That will never happen. It did happen. It was a
Yeah.
process. It took time. It was uncomfortable. But it, honestly, the joy that I get
Right.
by being able to see the growth of those other people because of the opportunities that they've been able to get is amazing. And I think as a CEO sometimes and as a founder, we think that we've actually got to do it all. And the biggest thing in leadership is supporting the other people to grow
Right.
and expand as well. And then that's reciprocal because it's our own growth as well as it is theirs.
Yeah, absolutely. My goodness. Thank you so much for sharing the fear framework. And I think it's amazing. Absolutely. And how you went backward, it just kind of, compounds over time when you do it. And it's the same framework. It's a formula you can just keep using. So thank you so much. I mean, I know this is an amazing conversation, Becky. So thank you so much for being here, reminding us that fear isn't always about something to fight. It is actually one of our greatest teachers, right? So, one of the biggest takeaways I feel like that we could take from today's conversation is that growth isn't about becoming fearless. It's about becoming the kind of person who can move forward even when fear is present, right? So, because every meaningful next chapter, whether it's in business, leadership, relationships, or life, requires us to expand beyond what's familiar. So, if today's conversation resonated with you all, I encourage you to connect with Becky and learn more about the fear theory, which I love. Her work offers a powerful framework for understanding fear, building self leadership, and stepping into the life that you're truly capable of creating. And if you're a founder, executive, visionary navigating your own season or of reinvention or expansion, I'd love to invite you into Sovereign Rise. These are the conversations we talk about, and it's just a beautiful journey. Obviously, in our mastermind, we're actually going to talk about how you step into that expansion season. So it's really a curated global leadership ecosystem for people like us and navigating seasons of the reinvention and the expansion. You're going to go through the identity shift. And we blend that soul and strategy with real business outcomes just so that growth and identity, leadership and visibility leads to stronger positioning and you magnetize opportunities and have a sustainable business and life moving forward. So we welcome a line group of founding collaborators and things have been really wonderful. Lots of master classes this month and healing circles and a mastermind that's starting next Monday. So if you're interested in becoming a founding member or collaborator or strategic partner, I'd love to connect. Reach out to me on LinkedIn and let's explore what's possible together. So thank you so much, Becky, for this wonderful conversation. I had a great time, honestly. I think these things are super important. And remember that the next time fear shows up, don't immediately ask, what if I fail, right? It's a language. Ask instead, what if this is the doorway to the person I'm becoming, right? So thank you so much for joining us on Voices of Impact, and I'll see you in the next episode.
Thank you.